welcome back to the Growing Pains podcast. How the hell are you? I'm so nervous. I'm feeling very shy. Everyone. I can't lie to you. Welcome back. It's been probably almost 2 years since I posted on this podcast. Maybe a year and 8 months. I think it was April of 2023. 4. What year is it? 2024 that I posted last. But I am back. And I have so much to talk about. I'm so excited for this podcast to be back. I have been going back and forth with it for a while. When I initially stopped podcasting, it was mainly for a few reasons. Number one, burnout. And number two, I got so icked out from social media. I just felt icky. I think I also just became incredibly hyper aware of the fact that I was being perceived, and that didn't sit right with me. I wasn't really enjoying that piece of the puzzle because I had never really considered what my social media presence looked like to other people. I don't know. It was just a lot of interesting things, and I just got so icked out, and I went and I privated all of my Instagram videos. I privated all of my TikTok videos. I left 4 up. And I was just sort of done. I kept doing my business, but I don't know. I didn't see a purpose in continuing to make content on social media in the way that I was. And I went back and I privated a lot of my YouTube vlogs, and I just didn't want people to have access to me like that. I did not want people to see what was going on with my life. I don't know. I was kind of really over it. And in that same breath, I was also really burnt out from being an entrepreneur and running a business, and I just wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. It was in the spring, March, April is when I really started to feel all of these things, think all of these things. And I was like, I want to try something different. I considered going back to college, never went to college. I considered going to college. I was ready for a career shift, to be quite honest with you. And a lot of different things were going on. And I remember being at the gym. At the time, I was going to a Lifetime gym, and I was there with my roommate, Carrie, and we were just talking, and somehow it had gotten on my radar, Fire Academy. I grew up in a family of first responders, so this was never really something I considered doing myself, but it sort of came across my desk. And I was like, maybe I go to Fire Academy. And then somehow I was like, maybe I become a 911 dispatcher. And I was actually interviewing in Boston in a town called Brookline. I got a job as a 911 dispatcher, but I never ended up taking it because I also at that same time enrolled in EMT school. And I initially didn't really have sorry, if you're watching the video version, I'm fully poking my eye out. There's something in my eye. Also, on a quick side note, while we're talking about the video version, there is video version of this podcast on YouTube, or you can listen to it anywhere you want, Spotify, Apple, all of those things. Back to the story. I initially was not planning on working as an EMT when I started school. I was just wanting to try out something new and see if I liked it and try a bunch of different things, get a bunch of different certificates and licenses and things like that just to see what I liked. And then eventually it turned into, I really like this. I want to do this. So then I started working as an EMT, and I did that for quite a while. I should say this. If you haven't been keeping up with me on social media or watching my other YouTube videos that I was posting, I now have a boyfriend. You guys know how crazy that is if you've listened to this podcast. Wow, the stories that I've told you. I think it was either the last video or the video before, and by video I mean podcast episode, before my break, was me basically ranting about dating and saying how I was kind of sick of it and done with it. I met Tyler, my boyfriend, in EMT school, and I met a lot of really incredible friends, which I have so much to talk about there. I probably want to make a whole dedicated episode on my experience as an EMT and all the things that it taught me and things like that, but I sort of just wanted to fill you in on where I was. Back in May, so my lease ended in May, but I sort of stopped living at the house that I was living at months before that, just because just some situations, whatever. And Tyler lived a lot closer to work. We worked at the same place on the same ambulance, so we just drove in together. And then we moved to Pennsylvania, back to my hometown in June. So I obviously I'm not working on an ambulance anymore. I sort of pivoted again, went back to my business with a new, fresh outlook on life. and on business and a whole new work ethic. Something about working on an ambulance and working 16-hour shifts will do that to you, for sure. It'll make you view work a lot differently and just value things a lot differently. I learned what was important to me and what I wanted and what I didn't want. A lot of that comes from remote work, entrepreneurship, having that flexibility, having stable income, things of that nature. So I shifted back to my business. I started making vlogs again on YouTube. I started working with a lot of photographers. My business was doing great. And then I connected with a girl in my through my business TikTok account, and she was like, hey, my company's hiring. So I started working there as a partnership manager. It's a company called Gigastar. I work with YouTubers essentially, and I mean, I'm not going to like bore you with my job details, but I'd be happy to talk about it with anybody who's interested. It's really, really cool. It's essentially like creating the stock market for YouTubers, which is awesome. I'm learning a lot about finances and finance in general and investing and all sorts of things like that. But that's sort of where I'm at now. Partnerships manager at Gigastar. I am running the Studio Rue, my business account. I am bringing this podcast back. I'm not changing the name. I really like Growing Pains, but I'm no longer operating under Alyson Glick, which was an alias, whatever. It was an alias. I don't know if you guys, like, it depends on how long you've been here, but probably 5 years ago, I changed to that alias on social media, and I have a whole podcast episode on why I did that. I may go back and private those episodes because I shared so much about my life that, like, people don't need to know. And I kind of just want to start fresh with my last season of podcasting and this one. I started my podcast in 2019, so I shared a lot of things that I like. Looking back, it's just like, Alyson, that's nobody's business. Why are you talking about that on the internet? But my socials are now the Alyson Glick instead of the Alyson Glick. I think it just makes sense. A big part of my role at Gigastar is networking with people, and I'm really expanding my network and just, I feel like stepping into my career and actually treating myself as a professional and not just like a freelancer, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted people to find me. When they search my name, they're not going to find my profile, or they weren't because it was under an alias. So I'm the Alyson Glick across all socials. And I'm going to change this name to be Growing Pains with Alyson Glick instead of Growing Pains with Alyson Glick. That's sort of where I was and where I am now. I learned a lot. And one of the things being, in order to grow, you need to allow yourself to take breaks. It's a really important part of life that I feel like I never allowed myself to do out of fear of losing out on progress or setting myself back. But the truth is, pushing through moments where you need a break is going to hinder your progress more than actually taking the damn break would be. Because after a break, you come back motivated, you come back ready to go, or you come back with the knowledge that this isn't what you want to be doing anymore and you need to change something. And that goes for literally every aspect of life, like career, personal life, relationships, friendships. I mean, I can apply that to like my fitness journey, all of these different things. So I just wanted to highlight that if you are feeling the need to take a break, take a break. Also, if you're on YouTube and you think I just dunked my hand into like orange food dye, I had burnt orange nail polish on and I just took it off and now my fingernails are stained. So that's sort of what that is about. I am really excited to be podcasting again. I don't exactly know for sure what this podcast is going to look like. Obviously, like my podcast has always been very self-improvement, self-betterment, psychology, just like girl talk advice based, and that's not going to change. But I also would love to create a space for me to share things that I enjoy regarding like the business world and marketing and entrepreneurship and what I learned about finances. So like, let me know if that's I feel like that only fits with Growing Pains, like finances and being an entrepreneur and all of these things are, if you just heard my cat sprinting, that was what happened there. I don't know if you heard that. But regardless, I feel like all of that is a part of Growing Pains. So let me know if those are things you'd be interested in. Also, please let me know in the comments some things you would like to hear from me. If you're new to this podcast, you might be thinking, I need more structure. Like, I've gotten that so many times over the years of this podcast, is saying that it needs to be more structured and I need to stay on track. Girl, that's not me. If I have a thought, I'm going to say it in the middle of a sentence. And if you don't like it, this isn't the podcast for you. I sometimes make very good points, but it takes me a minute to get there, okay? So you either deal with it or go on get. So that's that. Just wanted to highlight that. I'm not going to be doing YouTube vlogs anymore. I just simply don't have the time. But I didn't want to stop doing YouTube altogether because I really have enjoyed creating content again. I just don't have the time or energy to make and edit vlogs. So instead, I'm going to make and edit podcasts because it's a lot less time consuming and it's fun. Damn it. And a lot of people have said they miss my podcast. So there we go. This episode is just like a welcome back. Here's what I learned. Here's where I've been. But this isn't what all of the episodes are going to look like. For example, some episodes that I have planned, at least my next episode, I think it will be my next episode, is what I've learned since being in a healthy relationship as someone who never was in a healthy relationship before and didn't really have any healthy relationships modeled to me growing up aside from my grandparents. So that's something I'm excited about. But these are some of the things that I have learned over my hiatus, I guess you could say. Obviously, I learned a lot, but I just wanted to highlight some of the things that were top of mind, with number one being sort of what I already alluded to, is that everything has its purpose. When I dropped social media and sort of my business to become an EMT, I was really worried for several reasons, because it was like, wow, I had so many people tell me I was crazy, in my family even, of like, why would you drop this thing? Like, it was doing so well for you. You were able to travel whenever you want. You had good money, like blah, 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 blah. And a part of me was like, yeah, you're right. I am crazy for dropping this. But the thing is, you can always go back. Nothing is like, as long as you're not burning bridges, you can always change your mind. You are always allowed to change your mind. And me stopping my business and stopping social media to become an EMT and then going back to it isn't backtracking. You're never backtracking. You're always moving forward. Even if you think you're losing progress or whatever, there is a reason for everything. And like I alluded to, when I was interviewing for my current position at Gigastar, I was always under the impression that like gaps in resumes would look weird. And I even considered not putting my time as an EMT on my resume because people might see that and be like, why would she leave this industry to go be an EMT? I feel like it was a big contributing factor, aside from like other things, to me getting the job. People love hearing about my time as an EMT, and it makes them feel very confident in my ability to problem solve, to operate under stressful situations, my work ethic, like all of these things. And for good reason, because I can really operate under stressful situations and I'm really good at problem solving. Like when you're on an ambulance, I feel like I never realize, obviously you realize this, but you never really think about it. Nurses and hospitals and nurses literally anywhere, and this is not me saying EMTs or paramedics are better than nurses by any stretch of the matter. My point is, they are all operating under the direct direction of a doctor. So if they need to or want to do anything, they have to get permission from the doctor for the most part. Obviously, on an ambulance, we have what's called a medical director, but we have to call them. We have our shift command, but we have to call them. If you're in a high stressful situation where things need to be solved, it is on you and your partner to figure it out. And if you're on the road, you're in the back by yourself. You figure it out. You problem solve. Do it under the guidance of your medical direction, which is basically just like rule books. And if you need to break the rules, you need to call your medical director. But like, we don't ask for permission for everything we do. It's like, figure it out. Just keep them alive. Figure it out. So my ability to problem solve is insane, and my ability to manage time is insane, because a lot of times these things are happening, like you have to be in and out, and you should not be on scene for more than 5 minutes, and you have to make your reports to the hospital letting them know you're coming in and time that correctly with like being maybe 5 minutes away, and while making sure you're like checking in on your patient in the back. Like there's so much going on constantly in such a short period of time that you have to really manage your time well. All of this to say, the parts of me that thought like, wow, I'm an idiot for doing these things, I would have never learned what I learned and been able to then apply that to my professional life had I pushed through the burnout. And honestly, I know I wouldn't be where I am now, because I probably would have kept doing what I was doing and I would have hated it. It just wouldn't have worked. Like, I don't know where I would have ended up, but I would have been miserable. And I loved my time in EMT school. I made so many incredible friends, which will lead me into my next point. But there's a purpose for everything, and I'm so glad I listened to myself, and I'm so glad I allowed myself to take a break and follow what felt good to me. Following my passions, following my interests, and just trusting myself, because nothing is like, I'm trying to think of this word. Nothing is definitive. Is that the word I'm looking for? Nothing is set in stone. You can always change your mind. You can always change your path. You can always, like, you have so much time. You can do everything you've ever wanted. I promise it will work out. To have a plan in place for the most part. Like, I could have never planned the way this happened, but let yourself do what you want to do, because there's a reason you want to do it. And if you want something bad enough, you'll make it work. That's my first lesson. Everything has a purpose. Lesson number 2 is isolation isn't the answer. Y'all may know I am quite the homebody. I spent most of my time in the house. If I wasn't in the house, I was at the gym, and I never left for the most part. Like the time for most of my life, honestly. But even when I was in Boston, like, I'd occasionally go to a coffee shop, and it's like, girl, what are you paying these Boston prices for if you're not going out? But that all shifted when I started EMT school, and I made these friends, and I realized, like, you can be an introvert, but you still need community. Humans need community. It's essential. Like, biologically, we need it. And my mental health skyrocketed when I started to hang out with friends. And the other thing is, like, you don't have to feel like it to do it. Most times I don't feel like leaving my house. I don't feel like going to see friends. Like, I don't feel like it. I love when I'm there. I have so much fun, and I'm always so glad I did it. But actually getting myself to go do the damn things are like, it's like pulling teeth. I don't know if that'll ever get easier, but you got to do it. Because the longer you like allow yourself to hermit, the harder it will be to get out. But nobody should spend all of their time alone. Friend groups, romantic relationships, like, getting out gave me so much fulfillment while still maintaining alone time. Like, go out once or twice a week. Damn, that's not asking for too much. And spend the rest of your time alone. But you should not be spending all of your time alone. Another thing with that is, like, I had really thought I worked through all of my shit, meaning like my baggage, I had done a lot of self-work in my own bubble. And it wasn't until I really got into a relationship, obviously it's heightened then because you're with this person so much, but it wasn't until I stopped being alone 24/7 that I realized I had a lot more to work on. And that's a good thing. Healthy relationships are a mirror. They provide you with a lot of insight into what you need to work through and work on. But I just wanted to say that, like, isolating isn't the answer. I don't know. I think I'm going to have a whole episode on that of if you're isolated and in your own bubble, you're going to think a lot quicker. You're going to be a lot quicker to think that you are, like, completely good because you have nothing around you to, like, quote unquote trigger things. And I don't mean like trigger as in like a I'm triggered way, more so like that is a trigger for something else. I don't know if that made any sense, but nothing is going to pull things out of you or cause you to react certain ways if your environment is entirely controlled by yourself because you're alone. So when I was no longer alone 24/7 and now around a partner all of the time, I realized, holy shit, I need help. Not so much. Like, I needed to learn how to communicate healthily. I needed to learn how to coexist with people again. Like, I was such a hermit. Everything was on my own terms. I started to live very selfishly, if that makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with living selfishly. There's nothing wrong with living alone and your whole life being built around you. But there's a lot that changes when that's not the case anymore. And for the better, because there's a time and place for that. But again, humans need community, and it's not productive for us to be alone 24/7 in any sense of the matter. It's not fulfilling. It's not causing you to grow. I mean, maybe like being alone and sitting with your thoughts at first is productive, but that, you know what I mean? Like, there's only so much of that you can do. And in that same breath, like, I also realized self-work without action is pretty much bullshit. Like, the introspection is great, which is a lot of the times what comes from being alone, at least in my experience. But if it doesn't lead to like actual real world changes, it can lead to selfishness or even stagnation. And it's hard to implement the things that you've learned when you're by yourself. Again, this really depends on what the sort of topic is that we're discussing, because for the first like year or two of my singlehood, I learned and implemented a lot because a lot of what I needed to do was like inner work. It was a lot of like trauma healing and learning to like being alone and working through codependency and learning to figure out who I am. That's stuff that I needed to do alone. But then after that, it's the part of like healing my relationship with others, and not like anyone in specific, but like I had a lot of relational healing to do and work in general, like learning how to communicate with people, learning how to trust people, learning how to, have healthy dynamics, learning how to compromise, learning how to be patient, learning how to be understanding. All of these things that like I could do on my own to an extent, but there's only so much healing you can do regarding relationships and friendships and partnerships with other people that you can do by yourself. Like there has to be someone else involved there. That pissed me off to learn as someone who is so hyper independent and like I want to do everything myself. Like I can do it myself. Girl, you can't do everything yourself. Sorry, you got to admit that. So that's where like balance is so important, because you need that time to be alone and to reflect on things, but then you need to put that into action. And if it's some of the things that I mentioned, like you have to do that in community or with people or at least around people. And I'm not saying like you have to tell people, all right, I'm working through this, we need to do this together. No, it's not their responsibility. Simply saying like, me working on my communication, I can't do that by myself, so I need to do that with others, especially like my boyfriend. I don't, like, obviously I communicate with him, like, this is something I'm working on getting better at it, but it's not like this is our problem to fix. No, it's my problem. It's not even a problem, but it's my responsibility, just needing to do it in conjunction with someone else, if that makes sense. So those are like my 3 top of mind lessons that I've learned. Self-work without action is bullshit. Isolation is bullshit. And allowing yourself to change your mind, allowing yourself to take breaks, because everything has a purpose. Obviously, I have 112 other things that I've learned and lessons I've really carried with me, but I just wanted to touch on those because for some reason they've been top of mind for me lately. Pivoting sort of into the vision for this podcast, I already mentioned that like I sort of want to expand my focus beyond just self-betterment and psychology. I also want to talk about business and finance, but also wellness. And I've talked a bit about fitness, but I definitely have a different view. I started working around the same time that I stopped this podcast. I was training for a half marathon and I started working with a coach. And that was necessary. Yeah, because I had a lot of disordered eating and I was overtraining and underfueling in a very big way. And I had a really unhealthy relationship with fitness and my body and all these things. Yeah, it's been really interesting and I'm going to make a whole episode on that. This is random, but I just got diagnosed with OCD. Cheers to that. I sort of knew I had it, but I recently just started with a therapist again. Everybody clapped. Yay. For the reason I just mentioned, like I have a lot that has been brought up that I would like to get better at. And I want a therapist to help me with that, but also like over the years I've been like, damn, I think I have OCD. And I talked to her and within the first 5 minutes, she said, yep, you do. Thank you. Like something about it is so validating of like, wow, okay, that's really good to know. But also it's like, how'd you know that so fast? Probably me telling her when I was little, like I thought everything was going to kill me. I used to have stomach problems as a child. And every time I would eat, my stomach would hurt. I knew this, but I would still convince myself I had been poisoned every single time. I was petrified of thunderstorms. I thought they would kill me. I thought for sure I would die in a car accident. And she said, yeah, hun, you got OCD. Oh, okay. So it's very interesting. The reason I said that is because I was talking about fitness and wellness and things like that. And my relationship to food and my body and fitness is very much so correlated to my OCD and my like compulsions with wanting to overtrain and undereat. Anywho, that's a whole different topic. But I just want to expand. I don't want to put myself into this narrow niche of self-help or whatever because I'm not an expert. And I think that's another reason why I got so icked out with myself is I was like, damn, I'm a know-it-all. I don't want to be a know-it-all because I'm not. I don't know everything. I'm really learning with you guys. I like to talk and I like to talk about the things that I'm learning, but I don't want you to ever hear this and take it as truth. And I know I speak with a lot of conviction sometimes, and that's just who I am as a person. So I might say like, you need to, or like, I hope I don't say that, but like I say you a lot and I speak as if I speak as if I know things to be true. Don't take what I say to heart in that way. Like I believe wholeheartedly what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it, but let yourself cipher through that as you will. I don't know if cipher through that is even a saying, by the way. Siphon? What am I saying? See, here we go. I just wanted to, make a note of that I'm not a professional in psychology, self-help, whatever. I really like to learn about it and I really like to share what I learn, but it's just advice and it's not always right. I just am here to share what I'm learning and hopefully have it be like practicable. Yay. practical. But yeah, I'm really excited to be back. I can share a little bit about, let's see, I have some episodes planned if you want to hear. I mentioned what I've learned since being in a healthy relationship, fitness and wellness, and my relationship with food and all of that. I've considered making one about like money mindset, because that's interesting, like after not really having a healthy relationship with money growing up. Lessons from being an EMT. Let me know what you let me know what you want, girl. Comment down below what episodes you'd like to hear from me, but this is really just about life. This is what this podcast is all about. Just learning and growing and everything that comes with life. Career, relationships to yourself, exploring your interests, traveling, like who knows? Who literally knows? But we're here to learn together. I'm happy to share what I learn. And comment down below if there's something specific you would like to hear or see from me. I'm so excited to be back. This episode was all over the place, but when aren't they? I'm trying to like structure them a little bit more moving forward, as, you know, I want them to have a bit more of topics, but I'm not sure how long they'll be. They might be 20 minutes. It might be 5 minutes, depending on what we're talking about. Maybe I'll have guests. Who knows? We'll see. But regardless, we're here. I'm excited to be here. We're growing together. Yeah, follow along. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok if you want. You don't have to. The Alyson Glick. And I'll see you next time. This is the Growing Pains, baby. We are back. Smooches.